right, now how about we hear from some dedicated researchers who are going to give us the latest data on workplace wellness. First, Katherine Johnston, Senior Research Fellow at the Global Wellness Institute and Senior Economist at SRI International. Please come up on stage. And Ophelia Yeung, also a Senior Research Fellow at GWI and Senior Consultant at SRI International. Please give them a warm welcome.
Hi. Fantastic. Hello, everyone. You're going to be hearing from a number of people during the summit over the next few days about the topic of workplace wellness. And Ophelia and I are here this morning to share with you the research that we've been doing on workplace wellness this year for the Global Wellness Institute. And what we'd like to do is stimulate some creative thinking and some new thinking on this topic by not talking about workplace wellness programs. So sorry if that disappoints any of you. But instead, what we'd like to talk about today is the much broader topic of wellness at work. What are the current wellness challenges we face when we go to work? What does the future of work look like? And how will that future shape how we think about wellness in our workplaces in the coming years? Can we have the slides, please? So to start out, I'd just like to paint a few pictures for you. This is Stu in Tokyo. And he recently released a viral video online that profiles his life as a Japanese salaryman. He works 13-hour days, 6 days a week in Japan's financial services industry. These women work 10-hour days in a Bangladeshi garment factory. They earn about 29 cents an hour. Many of the workers in this factory are underage. The owners of the factory sometimes padlock the doors so that the workers cannot leave the building. Fires are a major risk in these kinds of factories, and if a blaze breaks out, there's no way for these workers to escape the building. This is Benjamin Fijado, and he works as a day laborer on a coffee plantation in Nicaragua. He earns about $3.50 a day, but it costs at least $4 a day to feed his family of 4.
So this is my friend Katherine here. She's actually a remote worker who telecommutes from her house. She's one of the lucky Americans who had a really great health plan from her employer, and she's also be able to work part-time from her home. But because of her busy work schedule, and she also has young children, Katherine has a very sedentary lifestyle and work style. She finds it very difficult to have time to exercise, and she often complains to me about her stress. So each of these people that we highlighted, they have different sort of work-life conditions. They're very different, but there's a common theme that runs through them. And it is that the work is part of an unwellness that they're experiencing, and this is what we have been seeing all over the world.
So every day, about 3.2 billion people get up and go to a work or to a job. And for most of these people, their working lives are incredibly unwell. 85% of all workers live in developing countries, and as you can see, the majority of them are quite poor. Almost half of all workers are in low-skill and manual labor occupations, and many people are stressed and unhappy at their jobs. 38% of workers say that they suffer from excessive pressure at their job, and a huge 87% of people around the world are disengaged at work. People are also unsafe at work. Every year, there are over 2 million deaths and over 300 million accidents at work. And these statistics have not really been improving in recent years. And most of these people have no insurance to cover them if they have a work-related accident or illness. And of course, as we all know, the physical health of workers is deteriorating all around the world. Over half of all adults are either obese or overweight, and they suffer higher risks of chronic disease. And 9% of workers or adults already have diabetes. The majority of people self-report that they're struggling or suffering physically. And by 2030, 1 in 5 workers will be over the age of 55. And our unwell workforce is a huge economic burden. It places great costs on businesses and on individuals and on the entire economy. And for the United States, where the data are most available, we've estimated that unwellness at work costs about $2.2 trillion every year, and that's 12% of US GDP. And these costs come from direct medical expenses, and they also come from the cost of worker absenteeism, and even more greatly, they come from the cost of lost productivity, when people are at work, but they're unwell, stressed, and disengaged while they're there. And some studies show that worker disengagement around the world is even higher than it is in the United States. And so it's very possible that the cost burden of unwellness at work is even greater around the world than it is for the statistics for the US that we show here.
So to respond to these problems, employers around the world have implemented workplace wellness programs. So just to go back in time a little bit, this concept started in the 1950s when a lot of employers in the US noticed that drinking has become a major employee health issue and also a major issue in the performance at work. And so they had to establish some type of wellness program to deal with that. And since then, these wellness programs have proliferated around the world and expanded in scope. And we estimated that now workplace wellness is worth about $40 billion globally as an industry. But what exactly are we talking about when we say workplace wellness? You might be thinking about that on-site medical clinic or that medical or health risk screening that you receive. It could be that Fitbit that you give to your employee, or maybe that's a stop smoking challenge or some kind of weight loss challenge that's going on in the office. It could be a yoga class or some kind of a gym that's subsidized by your employer. And all these things are pretty typical of what we consider workplace wellness programs out there. You may also have noticed that recently there are a lot of negative media headlines on the issue of workplace wellness. And so we'll just put some headlines on the screen for you, but usually they're along the lines of, do these programs work? Is it a waste of money? Are we seeing any results or return on investment? Are they actually harmful to employees, to overscreen them, or maybe harmful to their morale? We're seeing this negativity because many things that claim to be workplace wellness out there are missing the mark.
So let's take a look at what the problems are with workplace wellness programs. First, the participation in the programs is pretty limited, and many people are becoming suspicious of them, and that's reflected in those negative headlines you just saw on the screen. When we surveyed workers in the United States, about half of them said that they have a workplace wellness program at their job, but only about 3 in 10 actually participate in some aspect of it, and only about 1 in 10 actually think that it's helpful for their health or wellness. More and more employees are suspicious about workplace wellness programs and why they're being offered. They think their employers are just trying to reduce healthcare costs or trying to just squeeze more productivity out of workers, or maybe that their employers don't really care about their employees' wellness. And in many cases, this is probably true. And that's because the workplace wellness programs as they exist right now are very limited. They tend to focus almost exclusively on the physical health of workers, and they do not address the huge problems affecting wellness for most of the world's workers. When we take a look globally, only about 1 in 4 people around the world actually have what we would call a good job, and that is some kind of permanent position with a guaranteed wage and some kind of job security. And everyone else in the world is in a contingent job or a temporary job, or they may work for their family and not be paid, or they may not actually have a secure job from day to day. Many of you have probably seen the statistics out there in the media talking about how a huge and growing number of companies are offering workplace wellness programs. But what we have to recognize is that a very small portion of people around the world actually work for those companies. The companies that do offer workplace wellness programs are mostly large, or they're multinationals, or they're in the higher income countries. And so we've estimated that only about 9% of workers around the world potentially have access to some kind of workplace wellness programs or services at their jobs. And this percentage varies by region, as you can see, but it's very, very low outside of North America and Europe. And so when we look at these percentages, we can easily see that workplace wellness programs are reaching very few workers around the world. For the workplace wellness programs that do exist right now, they're not especially effective most of the time. That's for several reasons. One is that they tend to be run by human resource departments, and they tend to be run as compartmentalized programs. They're not integrated into the operations or the culture of companies and organizations. The impact of these programs is also limited because they're usually designed to be reactive. And when we say reactive, what we mean is that the wellness programs assume that people have some kind of health problem that they bring into work with them, and then the wellness program is just trying to fix that problem. Most of the time, workplace wellness programs do not acknowledge the many aspects of people's work that actually cause their stress and cause their health problems, much less trying to change those poor working conditions. So we see that workplace wellness programs are missing the mark because they're not capturing the very important two-way relationship between our work and our wellness. And so let's take a quick look at that relationship because it can sometimes be a vicious cycle. Many of us do bring health problems or family-related stress or negative attitudes into work with us when we go to our jobs. So when we're sick, if we're not motivated, if we're not engaged in our work, we're certainly not going to be productive at work. But at the same time, our work also harms our health and wellness in many ways. As we see from the example of the Bangladeshi garment workers that we talked about at the beginning, our work environment can possibly be dangerous or even life-threatening. And as we see from the other workers that we profiled, stressful working conditions can create a lot of emotional and mental distress. So whether it's the financial challenges that come from low wages, or maybe it's long working hours, the inability to unplug, problems with work-life balance, or even having difficult relationships with our coworkers or our bosses, all these kinds of stresses at work can make us physically ill. But on the flip side, the positive thing is that the relationship between wellness and work can be a positive one. When we're healthy and when we're well-rested and when we're motivated, we bring a high level of energy into work. Our minds are sharp, we're positive, we make better decisions, and we're more effective and we're more productive at our jobs. And when wellness and work are in a good relationship, work can and should also improve our wellness. Most of us spend at least half of our waking hours at work, and most of us work in social environments. And so work is an ideal environment, an ideal place for us to form healthy habits. Work also improves our wellness immensely when it gives us a sense of purpose and a sense of accomplishment. For example, if we feel appreciated by our customers or clients, when we have camaraderie with the people we work with and we like and respect them, or when we feel like we've made a difference in the world through our jobs. And that is the kind of wellness that we need to include and need to think about when we talk about what wellness at work means.
So creating a virtuous circle between wellness and work is even more important considering what the future of work is going to look like. And this is actually the favorite part of our research, and that's a lot of information here. We can't cover it all today, but it will be in the app, and we will release a full report in a few months. But the important thing I want to note here is that work is changing and will continue to change because of the changing global economy, of demographics, and how technology is diffusing information, and with it, the power to make decisions to more people. And these developments are changing work in many ways. For example, the days of working for one employer to have lifetime employment and a loyalty is over. In their lifetime, people are going to work for multiple employers. They are going to work in more teams and networks. They may work as contractors, or they may view themselves as entrepreneurs. The nature of work is also changing. We all know how computers and machines have been replacing us in all kinds of manual and repetitive jobs. But when you add artificial intelligence in the mix, we all know that computers and algorithms are invading jobs that used to require very specialized training and skills. And we're not talking about just accounting. We're talking about engineering, we talk about medicine, we're talking about consulting, research. So in the future of work, what are we going to bring? The jobs that have grown the fastest in most recent years and will continue to grow are the jobs that require human qualities. And what are these qualities? The jobs that have been looking for these qualities, these are jobs in the most innovative companies. They're looking for people who are creative, they're self-directed, they can learn and adapt, and they take initiatives. they're increasingly talking about emotional and social intelligence because we have to connect and collaborate with other people. We have to have empathy, and we have to have good judgment, and we have to have good judgment to both frame and solve complex problems. And to be able to bring these qualities to work requires a very high degree of wellness. And that's well-rested, a sharp mind, but also motivation. At the Global Wellness Institute, we defined wellness as having many dimensions, not only physical, but there is social, emotional, spiritual, and others. So as we understand more about wellness and its many dimensions, and also have a more clear picture of work, how work is going to look in the future, we put them together and we're going to paint a picture of what the future of wellness at work would look like. So we're going to have like 7 predictions of the trends of wellness at work. And our first prediction is that both companies and governments will place a big emphasis on reversing the current direction. And that's the current direction of worsening health among workers, of ever higher medical costs, and also the consequence of worker disengagement from their work. These costs are simply too high, and they're escalating, and escalating too quickly for governments and business to ignore. Which leads to our second prediction that wellness at work is going to explode in the next few years. And why focus on wellness at work? That's because work is a social environment and is a very ideal place for us to form good habits. And second, because of what work requires now and what competitiveness and innovation requires, employers are going to know that they have to put a premium on keeping their workers well in order to be competitive and innovative. Which leads to our third prediction that workplace wellness, as we know it today, will disappear. The wellness programs we see today, as Katherine said, they are mostly characterized by being very reactive and compartmentalized and seen as some kind of an HR function. And that kind of approach is not working, and employers know that, and we see from the media headlines, it is not working. Instead, what are employers going to do? We're going to be talking about creating a culture of wellness. That's what they're going to talk about instead of wellness programs. And a culture of wellness means it is understood that people are valued in the company or in the workplace, and that it's recognized that these people all have many dimensions of wellness. And in fact, we believe that building a wellness culture in a company, and this culture of wellness is going to be embedded in the strategic business objectives of most companies in the future. So our fourth prediction here is related to our concept of wellness and individual responsibility. And this has a lot to do with what I just mentioned before, that we have more access to information, and therefore all of us feel empowered that we can do something about it. So we're more and more aware that wellness had many dimensions, and we're also more aware that what part of work makes us unwell. We are increasingly recognized we want to do work that we're interested in, that bring us meaning. And at the workplace, we want to feel respected, we want to be treated and paid fairly, and we want to have some sort of balanced work life. So people will look for areas where they can take action and make decisions and do something and take charge of their wellness and their work. And we believe that as people become more empowered, they're going to be doing things and not waiting for either governments or the employers to take the lead. And so, which leads to our fifth prediction, that as workers become more aware of the importance of wellness and work, the companies and the employers that fail to recognize that and embed that into their work culture, how they work, and their organization, they will find it increasingly hard to attract and hire good people and retain them. And as we mentioned, the most desirable workers in the future are the ones who have very specialized, very good human qualities and require a high degree of wellness. And they are also going to be the ones who have the most choices to choose how they work and whom they work for. So employers will find that the degree of wellness that they can propose as a value proposition to their employees is going to be the key to compete and retain talent. And the next prediction is that on a broader level, companies are going to realize that doing good by your employees and by your community is actually good business. And this is because consumers now, when they buy a product or service, they're consuming an experience and a brand. And this is going to be increasingly important as we know millennials who are going to have more and more purchasing power. And people are going to be less and less interested to buy things or patronize companies that are associated with the destruction of the environment, and they're simply not going to trust brands that treat their workers poorly. So companies that are able to incorporate wellness both as their brand and also project it, and we predict that they're going to find that they will be able to gain grounds in the market in the future. A final prediction is related to governments. And as we know, governments in terms of workplace wellness had traditionally focused on regulations that protect worker safety, protect them from accidents, and protect them from occupational injuries and illnesses. But with the rise of chronic disease, which is related to sedentary lifestyle, sedentary work style, and also related to stress at work, it is very likely that governments are going to step into this area in the future.
So very quickly, just to wrap up, I wanted to let you know that our full research study on wellness at work is going to be released by the Global Wellness Institute in January. And we hope that it will really stimulate a shift in the conversation about wellness and work and help you think about where you can make a mark. And before we get booted off the stage, I just quickly want to leave you with a vision and a challenge. And here on the screen is what we propose for a future vision for wellness at work. And I want you to note that there are two key words here, right and responsibility. Workplace wellness, or wellness at work, is a right because there's no excuse in our world today for anyone to work in dangerous conditions or unhealthy conditions, or not to receive a living wage, or to work in a demeaning or demoralizing or hostile environment. It's also a responsibility because all of us need to do our part to infuse our work with wellness. And that especially includes everyone in this room because all of you represent the wellness industry. And there's a huge need for innovative thinking in this area, and people are hungry for new options and new solutions to drive long-term lifestyle change. And so there's an opportunity for you to get into this field on the ground floor and help develop creative solutions. But an equally important opportunity, and probably a much bigger challenge, is for you as the wellness industry to take a lead in implementing this vision. Because when wellness at work is done right, it's usually because company leaders really take the lead and make the health and well-being of their employees their top priority. And change in this area usually comes from the top. Most of you are executives and leaders in your own businesses, and you can become evangelists for wellness in your own work and your own companies. You can try out new approaches and see what works. And make your workplaces and your industry a model for wellness at work, and by being so, you will be leaders and be models and encourage others to do the same. Thank you.